make sure you stay in good conversation, you gotta tune in to Coffee and Conversation with Colette. That's me. Thursday mornings from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on the only station, WHPR TV 33. See you soon.
Great, amazing Friday to you. Do I seem really tall? Yeah, good. I like this. I like that look. I like that. Very good, everyone. Rise and shine up and at 'em. It's an amazing new day, and we are so blessed and so grateful to be right here, right now. This is our appointed day and time. It's Friday. It's a beautiful day. We have snow outside. Well, for those of you in where I live, we have snow outside in April. You know what? But we stay thankful because you're officially tuned in to Coffee and Conversation with Colette, and I'm Colette. And you all know I do my curtsy because that's what I do to show reverence to you. Because as I always share with you, I know that you could be anywhere, doing anything, watching anything, taking in the information that is given to you. But you choose to tune into WHBR TV 33, whether it is on TV 33 or Comcast 91 or Roku or our app. You made the conscious decision to be here. And we don't take it for granted. I don't take it for granted. And I hope that you know that at the end of our conversation, this is our 2-hour segment on Friday, that you will, my goal is, my desire for you, is to walk away educated, enlightened, and empowered. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to agree with the conversations that are had on today. And I like to share with y'all, maybe I'm just a little bit too transparent, but I don't, and this is the only life I have. These are the only moments that I'm actually given, these right here, that I can speak to you right now. So why be anything other than what I am? I have the most interesting conversations offline. People call offline. They don't call on the line, but they call offline to share with me their concerns, their dreams, their goals, how they would handle certain conversations. And I just want to tell everyone, thank you for those who called me yesterday and for who DM'd me on my instant message and all those things to share what your thoughts were. And I appreciate it. I appreciate that you understand the goals and that the desire is for us to think. And a lot of people want to constantly push back because they want to believe that they are someplace because of their own effort. But the truth is that's not what it is. You just follow the process. It's like a mouse going through a maze to try to get to the cheese. And it's not that. I mean, if you just envision that, I mean, we're very visual people, right? So if you envision this maze and you know the cheese, remember when you were little and used to play that game? And the cheese is at the end, and then you have all these different little roads that you can take. What was it that was the driving factor for the mouse? It wasn't any direction. He couldn't see because there was just straight boxes, straight lines, movement, directions. It was his sense of smell, right? Did you all get that? It was his sense of smell that was motivating him because he wanted to find the cheese. So for us, I don't believe that we have any sense of anything that directs us other than what was given to us in this environment. Do I need to say that yet again? We don't have a sense of direction for us other than what was given to us in this environment. Because if we did, if we understood and honored our past, and I mean past our history in America, then we wouldn't be in the situations that we're in. We wouldn't consistently wait and scream and put our positions in life based on people that are supposed to govern us. When consistently walk in a space that you are governed, I believe that that is a slavery mindset. So much so then when it cripples you. It doesn't mean that you don't understand the powers that be and you don't understand this policy and you don't understand the process of democracy. I'm not saying that. But when you are in a position where you can't do anything else for yourself, choose not to do anything else for yourself. Have a mindset which keeps you stagnant in this one space and time because everything is doom and gloom. Everything is, oh, look at what this looks like. We can't work. We can't get contracts. We can't. But all you can do is go to that job that you have, if you have it, punch that clock, put those 8 or 10 or 12 hours in, then come back home, like the mouse. So the mouse has one way in, the mouse has one way out. And so I want to set that as a tone for him this morning because we're going to continue the conversation that we had yesterday. And I'm so appreciative to those of you all who called in. I was so apologetic to those who, because all the lines were lit when we were getting off the air. We're going to continue that conversation. And so I asked you for a minute to juxtapose the positionings of Martin Luther King as we commemorated 50-year anniversary of his assassination and the homegoing of Winnie Mandela at 81 years, in both fighting to end segregation. Apartheid, as it is labeled in South Africa, is a position that you are not discriminated against based on the color of your skin. Segregation in America is defined that you are not discriminated against based on the color of your skin. And so then you notice that at this day and age, in 2018, in the month of April, we're still having the conversations about not having the equality that we had we never had it, that we've been searching for, that it was defined under the civil rights movement, and here was under the majority of the national exposure under Dr. Martin Luther King. And so I presented to us yesterday that maybe if you thought a little bit about what it looked like, that at the end of the day, he was more than the I have a dream speech. At the end of the day, that perhaps the position wasn't that we had to integrate, we just wanted the laws to provide equality. Maybe we took it too far. Maybe those of us who were the social elite, that talented tenth, those who were the educated Negro, maybe those of us who were working so hard to be validated by the masses at that time, that we then had to forsake what should have been autonomy for us to blend in and to be validated by them. And so much so that we're still doing that today. And then so much so that the only examples that we really have that we have a shroud about is Martin Luther King. But we don't sit and talk about Malcolm X. Do we? Do we talk about Marcus Garvey? Because the conversations would be different. Because the outcomes would be different. But then we're not comfortable with that because then that is not the mass media conversation that wants to be infused into to trick you. Okay? So we're going to talk about the death of a king. And so everyone, all the lines are lit. I see you. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to get you on this morning. But I want us to see this clip. And this clip is about 10 minutes. It's a conversation that Tavis Smiley had on Detroit Public Television that talks about his book, how he assesses the last year of King's life, and what I believe, how I interpret the information as what it looked like for us as a future, as a people. Where do we go from here? Or maybe we don't even understand the position of who Martin Luther King was. So let's watch the clip.
Smiley, the author of Death of a King, the real story of Dr. Martin Luther King's final year. Welcome.
Good to see you, Rich. You good?
I see you too. Doing great.
Good.
Really glad to have you.
Honored to be here.
This book was really eye-opening for me. As I read it, there were a lot of things that I've learned about Martin Luther King, certainly, and even my kids are learning different things about Martin Luther King than I learned about Martin Luther King. But I didn't know what a tough final year all around it was for Dr. King.
I regard Dr. King, Rich, as the greatest democratic, small d, the greatest democratic public intellectual the country's ever created. To my mind, he may even be the greatest American we've ever produced. I could debate you on FDR, I could debate you on Lincoln, a lot of great Americans. But to my mind, he's certainly America's greatest democratic public intellectual because he had the courage and the conviction and the commitment and, quite frankly, the character to speak the kinds of inconvenient, uncomfortable truths that people didn't want to hear, even though they needed to be told. So the story is, as you mentioned, the story of the last year of his life. King gives I Have a Dream speech in 1963. He's dead too young at the age of 39 in 68, but he does live 5 years after I Have a Dream. So we got to get beyond this notion of thinking that King only gave one speech in his life.
Right.
And the speech only had one line in it, that I want my children to live in a nation where they'll not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's all we know about King. But over that 5 years, he evolves, he morphs, he grows, he matures over the last 5 years of his life. And this story of the last year of his life is a story that most Americans don't know. And when you try to juxtapose the way we have deified him in death with the way he was literally demonized in the last year of his life, you have a hard time trying to square those two.
And demonized not just by the group you would expect, which is white Southerners or angry, people who didn't appreciate Dr. King's message, but by black Americans as well.
Yeah. Demonized by everybody. So April 4, 67, he goes to New York City, to the Riverside Church on the Upper West Side. And at the Riverside Church, he gives a speech called Beyond Vietnam. And this is the speech that is the most controversial of his entire life. So in this Beyond Vietnam speech, he calls America, one, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. That's a damning indictment. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. And then he goes on in that speech to advance this notion of what he calls the triple threat facing our democracy. King argues, Rich, that if we don't get serious about this triple threat facing our democracy, we're just going to lose our democracy. That triple threat, racism, poverty, and militarism. So he tells America, if you don't get serious, America, about racism, poverty, and militarism, you're going to lose your democracy. But then he tells America again that you, America, are the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today as he comes out forcefully against the war in Vietnam. So King gives this speech, and the next day, all hell breaks loose. So literally, from April 4, 67, when he gives this speech, Beyond Vietnam, to 1 year to the day later, April 4, 68, when they assassinate him, this story is the story of that last literal 12 months of his life and what happens to him once he gives that speech. And pardon my English, it ain't pretty.
You know, you write it in the present tense the whole time, and you refer to him in a way that I'd never referred to him, Doc.
Yeah.
But it's always about, as we're going through the year, we're living that year and those days with him, and we're talking about Doc is doing this and Doc is doing that. Where does the Doc come from?
All his friends and colleagues called him Doc. His staff called him Doc. And I wanted to take him off that pedestal, kind of humanize him. I argue in the text that I think that King's martyrdom has really undermined his message. His martyrdom has undermined his message. We get so caught up in the assassination part that we, again, haven't come to terms with what set him up for assassination. And the short story is that when you abandon somebody, the way that King was abandoned, you abandon them and then you isolate them, sort of give them the Heisman, you know. So you abandon them, then you isolate them. It makes it easy for somebody else to assassinate them. And that's what happens to King. So when he gives this speech Beyond Vietnam, here's what happens over the last year of his life. He gives this speech, and immediately the media turns against him. Now, pardon my English again. We ain't talking Fox News. Fox News wasn't around then. You can imagine the field day that Fox News would have had when King calls America the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. It would have been all over him like a cheap suit. So we're not talking Fox News. We're talking the liberal New York Times, the liberal Washington Post. We're talking Time Magazine. When you read in this text what these liberal media outlets said about King, it's embarrassing. It's shameful all these years later to see the language they employed in talking about King because he came out against the war in Vietnam and basically called America on the carpet. So the media turns on him first. Then the White House turns on him. He and Johnson have worked together. Excuse me. He and President Johnson worked together to pass the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. But now King is going tete-a-tete, Rich, with him on the war in Vietnam. And Johnson doesn't like that. So the media turns on him, and then the White House turns on him, and then white America turns on him. The last poll taken in his life, the Harris poll, found that nearly 75% of the American people thought he was irrelevant. And almost 60% of black people, to your earlier point, his own people, almost 60% of us thought that he was persona non grata. When I say us, I mean Roy Wilkins and the NAACP publicly against Dr. King. Whitney Young and the Urban League. I can't even quote on television what Thurgood Marshall, yes, that Thurgood Marshall, what he said about Dr. King. Adam Clayton Powell Jr., Ralph Bunche. I mean, the entire black elite, the black glitterati, you know, turns against Dr. King. And that's at this level. For the everyday black people, they're over Dr. King because the Black Power thing is coming on. And they'd rather hear Stokely Carmichael than Dr. King. So the media turns on him, the White House turns on him, white folk turn on him, black folk turn on him, and inside his own organization, SCLC, they pass a resolution to condemn him for speaking out against the war in Vietnam. So his own organization turns against him. So the last year of his life, he has no constituency. Nobody's really standing with him as he's talking about this triple threat and trying to get this poor people's campaign off the ground. King is basically isolated, and he's alone, and that leads ultimately to his assassination.
You talk about the price you pay as a truth teller.
Yeah.
Did he ever lose hope himself? I mean, what all the kids learn in school is this optimist in the face of constant oppression. Did he lose hope in that last year?
It is the case, to your point about being a truth teller, it is the case. And my friend Cornel West, who appeared here at this festival, has said many times in one way, shape, or fashion, I agree with Dr. West on this, that there's a high price to pay for speaking the truth. There's a greater price to pay for living a lie. And King didn't want to live a lie. Now, was that easy to your question, Rich? No, it wasn't easy. The book talks about his depression, his despondency. When King was just a kid, 12 years of age, I won't give the story away in detail, but King tried to kill himself when he was 12. He you think about Dr. King, you don't think of a guy who's a 12-year-old kid trying to commit suicide. So the story, the book is told, the story is told in the book, rather, of King trying to kill himself at the age of 12. So he always had this sort of death complex, even when he was a kid. And that followed him throughout his life. But then, there's a book coming out next year about King. It's going to be very, very controversial, about Tufts University professor, who's really trying to do the first psychoanalysis of King. You ask, how can you psychoanalyze somebody 50 years after their death almost? But he's done some interesting work looking at King's hospital records, et cetera, which we touch on in this text. But King suffered from mania. So he's depressed, he's despondent. So here's his life the last year. Everybody, everything is turned against you. You have to feel like the cosmos has sort of shifted against you. Your own organization, you can't get to work with you on the Poor People's Campaign, and they passed a resolution to condemn you. You know there's a bullet out there with your name on it. The death threats are, voluminous. We just saw the New York Times released just a few days ago the official letter. I referenced the letter in the text. I'd seen parts of the letter, but the New York Times literally just released all these years later. Somebody stumbled upon an actual copy of a letter that FBI and the CIA, the FBI rather, sent to Dr. King, telling him he might as well just kill himself. This is the FBI sending King a letter saying to him, you might as well just kill yourself, dude. We're gonna get you. You're not gonna get out of here alive. You might as well just kill yourself. When you see that, you can go online and read it now. It's online. When you read what the FBI wrote to him, this isn't just surveillance. This isn't just wiretapping. They did all of that, but they're encouraging the guy to kill himself. So this is the hell and the hate coming at him every single day, and somehow he's got to navigate his way through that. Back to your question, how does he do that? He prays himself through it. He pulls himself through it. He pushes himself through it. He cries himself through it. There's stories in the book, one story in particular. King wakes up one morning, gets fully dressed, fully clothed, hat, back in the day, suit, hat, tie, everything. Can't get out the door because that despondency is so heavy on his heart. That burden is weighing on him. He can't get out the door, Rich. He turns back around, goes back, and gets back in the bed, fully clothed, hat, shoes, suit, everything. Pulls the cover over his head and just cries and cries and cries until he eventually falls asleep. In the last year of his life, there's some folk in his inner circle who were trying to get him to go see a therapist. He would not dare do it. He wouldn't see a therapist because he knew that Hoover would take that information, and on top of calling him a communist and anti-American and all the other stuff, then they're going to call you crazy, for seeing a therapist. So he knew what the end result of that was. So he and Belafonte talked about it many times, because Belafonte was seeing a therapist and had kind of recommended his guy to King. King wouldn't do it. But anyway, it's just a fascinating story of how you get up every day with all of that coming at you and still trying to tell the truth.
And you never think of Martin Luther King crying about his own condition. After all these years, though, he receives, that next plateau.
Yeah.
I mean, he is deified. I mean, he's now, there's holidays, and every child knows the I Have a Dream speech.
Yeah.
But you argue that that hasn't been good for his legacy.
No.
And that, in fact, it's undercut it, and this book would seem to indicate that.
It has indeed. To your point, holiday, postage stamp, monument in Washington, name on schools and streets and libraries. To your point, he's everywhere now. He's ubiquitous these days. President Obama has a bust of him sitting in the Oval Office. So again, as I said earlier, we have deified him in death, but haven't come to terms yet with the real message he was trying to get us to deal with. So almost 50 years after his assassination, if King were here today, Rich, he'd still be talking about that same triple threat that he talked about then. What do we see in Ferguson, Missouri? Racism, poverty, and militarism. And so were he here, I've been asked many times how he would feel about Barack Obama as president, first black president. Well, the answer is, I think, pretty simple. And the evidence is in the book because he went to Cleveland to campaign assiduously to help elect the first black mayor of Cleveland, Carl Stokes. Although the night Carl Stokes got elected, he dished Dr. King on national television. That's another story you read in the book about what he did to King after King, after brother get elected. He turns on him publicly because he don't even want to be seen standing in a picture with Dr. King. King is so toxic that black elected officials don't even want to be seen photographed next to the guy in the last year. Imagine that. We can't imagine King being here today. There wouldn't be a line everywhere of people taking selfies with Dr. King. They didn't want to be seen with Dr. King. So in the last year of his life, again, he's trying to get up every day and trying to tell these truths. They were uncomfortable, they were inconvenient, they were unhousing then, and they're still the same way now. So here now, he would certainly have campaigned for Obama, voted for Obama, and then he would have become Obama's chief critic. And he'd still be taking him and the entire body politic to task on that triple threat of racism, poverty, and militarism. So as long as we get caught up in the dreaminess and the martyrdom and never come to terms with his message, and we're not ever fully going to appreciate who he was.
You brought it up a couple times. This is about, obviously, this whole theme of Dr. King's life in the last year of his life has been something that's been working in your head for a long time. But you brought it up a couple times now, that social media and all the elements that today, and the Fox News or the other networks too, the constant 24 stream. How can a person like Dr. King emerge today? How can someone lead us through things like Ferguson and other things when you have an entirely different media setup?
It's a powerful question, Rich. And let me just, I always make a distinction between optimism and hope. I'm not an optimistic person. I'm a hopeful person. Optimism suggests there's a particular set of facts or circumstances, conditions, something you can see, feel, or touch that gives you reason to believe that things are going to get better. That's not my existence. I'm a hopeful person. I'm always a prisoner of hope. I believe you can build, I'm Exhibit A, you can build a whole life on hope. So even the evidence doesn't suggest that things are going to work out for you. You can always be a hopeful person, even if you're not optimistic. So I say that as a prelude to your question. I am not optimistic about how a king might have broken through. There's always the hope that he could have broken through. But the bottom line is this, that the media and the country, I think, writ large these days, has moved beyond being skeptical to being cynical. They questioned authority back then. King was part of a movement that questioned authority, rightly so, on the Vietnam War. All these years later, King was right, everybody else was wrong. But skepticism is one thing, cynicism another. We live in such a cynical society now, number one. I don't know that King could have broken through. Number two, there's a huge price to pay for being a truth teller. You get everybody turned against you. I'm no king and ain't trying to be, never will be. But in my own life, just in the last 7 years, trying to hold Obama accountable. So all my white progressive friends can raise critical questions about this president and holding him accountable. When I do that, every Negro's mad at me. I'm persona non grata in black America. We're just raising questions about accountability. You can't say nothing about the black president. So when you try to tell the truth, they turn on you. And then you're up against cynicism, which is different than skepticism.
Everyone, you got the gist of that, right? It was about 14 minutes. I appreciate you tuning in and staying focused with that. And I make a correction. That was an interview under a book tour series that was in Miami-Dade College with Tavis Smiley and his book, Death of a King. And I think that's going to be the book. I'm going to get the book. That's going to be the April book. Remember, we had Dr. Claude Anderson's book. We got this book, Who Needs the Negro? I'm trying to find that back in circulation. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things that we're going to be reading and sharing together. But you got some points. And I really wanted us to understand because so many times, as the clip has shared and as we have discussed, and I believe that your whole week, specifically as we're commemorating the assassination, but then we have to look at the life, no one is looking at what happens when you tell the truth. And I believe that we think, and I would say we as a massive group of people, is that is what this person is supposed to do. That when you come out and you speak these truths, that is what you just want to do. And then whatever the outcomes are, what the outcomes, and that there is let me just let you know that that's what this is. There are repercussions to that. There are consequences and repercussions. So other people are going to be for you when it benefits them, and then they'll be against you when it doesn't. So you all heard it. Everybody was kumbaya, great, great, great. And then when he decided to speak out against the war. Now, those of us who were this elite and this intelligentsia and all the ones that you heard the names, I can't wait to delve deeper into the book. But because King said that, America is the biggest terror. They're the biggest proponent of killing, the biggest terrorist, which is seen today. We're forever meddling in business that doesn't belong to us because we want to amass those assets. We want to control those resources. We talk about the Confessions of an Economic Hitman by Perkins, that we infuse ourselves in other countries' business because then we want to control the resources. We'll bring in the funds for development. We'll control that for the next 20, 30 years. And then what? That is what we do. As America, that's what we do. And we don't even understand that if that's what we're going to do to people that we aren't supposed to govern, what do you think we'll do to people that we're supposed to govern? And the society in which we govern. So that it is always supposed to be a class base. It is always supposed to be those who control. It's always going to be people that are put in positions and the pawns to fight for what is right, and then they are killed. King didn't just die. He was killed. Stop it. He was killed. Malcolm X was killed. I don't see anyone else jumping in to take on that type of mantra. I'm just asking. Has anyone else stepped on up to have the real kind of conversations that will isolate you from your family, your friends? You all saw it. We've talked about it. He was isolated, abandoned, and then assassinated. His own people, because that didn't benefit their position, they separate themselves. How many of us do that now? I wanted us to see that. How many of us do that? We do that right now. So if you don't like something that I say, you get on the bandwagon and then you talk about me to everybody else, and then you want to poo-poo this conversation, and that's supposed to benefit us. Why can't you just say, well, Colette, I just don't agree with it, and this is why I don't agree with it, and then we'll talk about why you don't agree with it, and then I'll tell you again, I'll reinforce my position, and then we need to come up with some solution, though. We had a wonderful caller yesterday that always talks about this association and we need to get together. Well, the truth is we can't get together. And there was a clip from a sermon that Martin Luther King said that the black folks in the North can't get it together. We just can't get it together because we're so busy trying to determine who's going to control it. That's our problem. So if we put that Negro in the lead seat, then we don't think he's worthy and we're not going to follow him, and then we're going to break off because we believe it's something different. Or I believe that I should be the lead. And look, why can't it just be that we all agreed? You have to have a spokesperson. Like, okay, there has to be one person that can go and speak for the group. Why can't we all be in a space to agree that we want economic empowerment? How do we get that? These are the steps. And then, okay, brother or sister Johnson, or maybe a man and a woman, now you all go and then facilitate that to the point of real estate. If we were going to buy up the block, then we all collectively pool our monies under the association. You have to have signatures on the account, so one person just can't. It's the business, okay? Maybe we should get there. It's the business of things, but we don't understand the business of things, so then we think that one person should just take over. They're going to just take over, so then we just do nothing. And on these days, we're still searching for freedom. We're still looking to the dream that King spoke about. And we're still talking about what Winnie was fighting for, this separatism. Why do we have to be separate? Well, the truth is, all the laws could change right today. And it doesn't have the impact on our minds. You all heard me. It could change all the laws today that made everything equal and fair and just. And we would still function in the same space. I said it. If you disagree, you can let me know. But I believe all of that is the bait and switch. It's a smoke and mirrors. We want to have conversations just to have conversations, but there's no action associated with it because we can't move. We are paralyzed in this state of existence. We can only look to the past from what was done. We can't plan for the future, and we don't know how to maximize the right now. I said it. And it is with that, I'm going to give the quote from Cornel West, and then I'm going to go to the lines. And as I stated yesterday, quote, there's a high price to pay for speaking the truth. There's a greater price to pay for living the lie. There's a price all day. I live it all day here in Highland Park. I told you, one of the elected officials said, no telling how many people he said it to, but I know one director in the city, he said, oh, that Colette, she's a B. Y'all know what the B word is. That B, Colette. She thinks she knows everything. So my position is, guess what? I know what I know. How's that? And if you knew what I knew, then the situation wouldn't even be, the city wouldn't be in the state that it's in. And you govern the city. So shame on you that you've been a lifetime resident of this city. The people have entrusted their vote to you in this city. And this city has then changed to look what it's looking like now under your leadership. And then you have the nerve to worry about me? You shouldn't worry about me. I'm just Colette. Colette trying to say it's a great day in the city of Highland Park. That's who I am. So let's go to the lines this morning. Thank you so much for indulging me, engaging me in my morning introduction and the video. So in a conversation there, it's not just me talking. It's us. So let's go to the line. Thanks for your patience. Great morning to you.
How you doing today?
I'm amazing. Thank you.
Well, first, I'd like to give a shout-out to TV 33, Comcast, Channel 91,
Okay.
WHPR. I'd like to give a shout-out to Mr. R.J. Watkins, Miss Colette Ramsey, Billy Jones, Money Making Diva,
Yes.
Miss Wanda, Miss Perryman,
Yes.
Reverend Holly,
Yes.
Mr. Malik Shabazz,
Yes.
Miss Lawanda,
Sure.
and all other TV show hosts and personalities of TV.
I just have a question for you. Wait. Before you finish, let me just ask you. Hold on 1 second. Hold on, 8 Mile. 1 second before you continue. I just have a question. Do you ever wonder that when you call off names that you'll miss someone and then someone else will be upset? I just want to
you
ask
have to say a little clear because I can barely hear you.
I just wonder that when you give your morning salutations to the other co-hosts, show hosts, do you ever wonder that you're going to miss someone so then someone else will be offended? Do you ever wonder that? But that just came to my mind. I just wondered if you wondered that. But please continue with your thoughts.
Okay, I gotta say rest in peace to J.D. Hill.
Sure.
Meaning, regardless, when I call TV 33,
yeah,
the person who turned me on to TV 33 10 years ago was J.D. Hill.
Yeah.
J.D. Hill was one of the first persons in the city of Detroit that acknowledged DJ 8 Mile as a CEO of a hip-hop organization. At the time, I was floating around 100 to 150 artists and DJs.
Sure.
He acknowledges WHPR from when it used to be WGH, when it used to be the other radio station before. Okay. So that's the reason why I acknowledge all the hosts, because when I do that, the TV show has to be on in order for me to acknowledge the people that's running. Okay. There was almost a time we didn't even have a TV station or a black radio station here in the city of Detroit.
Okay, so I get it. So let's get to the comment. I didn't mean to switch your chain of thought. I just wanted to go ahead.
No. I thank you because I've noticed that there's more people in the last 3 years that make it their business to shout out to people of positive recognition.
Okay.
So, hey, a trend is a trend. It's a good trend. Now, the thing on your show today, thank you for showing the clip about Travis Smiley.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing up the reason why this government and the people and the churches was in support of Reverend Martin Luther King until he became an official protester. And when you're an official protester, you're not going to get any love from a militarized country like ours.
Okay.
That's one. Second, when it comes down to Travis Smiley, and you put his video that you put out was the difference of being black in America and being black in white America. And he feels he knows the difference because there is truth. That's why most of us, people of color, there's a perception that we can achieve anything in the same manner of fashion and be respected in the same manner of fashion. But we found out that with President Obama, that's not true.
Okay.
That's why it's true America for us.
Okay.
Black in America, black and white America. Because the opposite experience is white in America, white and black America. If you were to say white and black America, the average Caucasian who never lived in a hardcore environment would start laughing at you. I'm glad he brought that up.
That's interesting. Well, it's interesting because I don't believe, for the white people that I have interacted with, there is a different energy with them. And it's across class. White folks walk in privilege. And I don't care if they're poor white folk. They still will think that they are better than you, and you can be at $100,000 salary, and they can live in the trailer park. They walk in, they walk in privilege and an understanding that they are who they are. That no matter what,
I didn't make the laws. I didn't make the rules.
Yeah,
I already made a comment that right now here in 2018, there's a majority of people in this country is living the same experiences as in 1970 to 1980 in South Africa.
Man, there's people who live in the same existence in the 60s.
Maybe not the same policies and force, but it's the same thing.
Yeah,
don't fool yourself about it.
Well, please, we still live like we're in the 60s. So be really clear that whereas we want to have the conversation.
The 60s of the United States is not the same as now.
Well, that's your perception. The oppression of a people is the same. What we have done,
is the same country.
What we have done as a people. Hold on. We both can't talk at the same time. Hold on. The position for me is that the people are different, but the laws are the same. The laws are the same. The laws have not changed. The people are different. Period. How we are not the same as we were in the 60s. Black folks worked together in the 60s. Black folk don't work together now. All we sit to do is talk about our past. We talk about how it was so great back then and all these old leaders, and no one talks about grooming people right now. No one talks about where we go right now. No one talks about what we should do right now. We keep talking about what everybody else did. And we live in that. That's our reality. That's my take. Are you there? Did I lose you?
Oh yeah, no, I understand. I not only do I acknowledge and understand what you mean, but I know the basis of it. Meaning, when before 1950, you hear me talk about history. Before 1950, most people look like you live in an environment of segregation. Okay, so when you acquire something in an environment of segregation, you cherished it more because you did everything you could legally to obtain it. And even if you legally obtain it, they still could take it away from you. So before 1950, when it comes down to businesses called black businesses, when it came down to associations based on black, based on color, when people live in a state of denial and acquire something, there's more a community to obtain it and maintain it.
Okay, well, stay right there.
Laws,
so stay right there.
Eradicating segregation. Okay, people that look like us start gravitating to things that they never was able to acquire before.
Okay,
That's the
so
person
stay
that was
right
living
there.
in Detroit. All of a sudden, got enough money to move out to Farmington Hills.
Sure.
Before 1950, he couldn't live out in Farmington Hills, whether he had the money or not. So when he got the legal opportunity, he moved out there. But guess what? He took his family, he took his money, and he took his spirit, and he took his heritage out there. Now, when he took his heritage, his spirit, and his money out there, that wasn't receptive to him. He moved out there based on trying to be accepted by people who would never live around.
So stay right there. So hold on. So stay right there. So he didn't take, and then I'm going to get to the other cause. He didn't take his heritage. He didn't take his heritage. He didn't take his spirit. He didn't take his culture. He didn't take any of that. He took his new Brooks Brothers suit. He took his S-Class BMW, Benz. He took his education and his degree. And he walked into a space that he thought then validated him and made him successful as defined by these Americas. And he left his culture and his class and his people behind. I appreciate your conversation, opening up this topic on this morning. I'm going to go to the next caller. I want to get everybody's in. You too. Thank you. And everyone, there's going to be another point that we talk about the importance of mental health. You heard Tavis Smiley speak about the depression that Martin Luther King endured. And so in that next hour, we're going to talk about mental health and black folk. What it looks like for us, why we don't address mental health, what the crisis is, what the issue is. You heard Tavis speak in the clip that King didn't want to go to address what his issues are because he didn't want the government to have that documentation. And then to be able to put out that maybe he wasn't thinking correctly, or then we're going to be defined as crazy, and all those things that then have to change and challenge his message. So the next hour, we're going to talk about that because that's what we do, right? We put it all together. So let me go to the line. Thanks for your patience. Great morning to you.
Good morning, Queen.
Good morning, King.
Queen, excellent subject as usual.
Thank you.
And what you're saying, I understand what you're saying about the mindset.
Yes.
You know, when you think about it, you have a mind that have a mind of superiority, and then you have a mind of superiority or whatever.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Yes.
And you know, we as a people, we have so much pride that it's difficult with the little training, not education, but the little training that they have given us. We seem to think that we know something. And it's difficult when truth comes that we accept it and we argue with it. You know, it's like, to be standing next to somebody and there's a bird flying, and you're looking at the bird fly, and here's an individual that's standing next to you and say, oh, that bird is not flying. And they're arguing with you about a bird that's in flight, and they just can't accept it.
Yeah.
This is the kind of people we have been made into.
Yes. Yes.
You know, in other words, we have to accept the fact that for 310 years we was owned, sold, bought, and everything. We was less than a dog.
Yes.
And so when you begin to understand the brain and the mind, it's nothing but a computer.
Yes.
It records everything.
Yes.
And so they reprogrammed us.
Yes.
And we have been programmed in such a manner, understand, that we would not be a threat for the next thousands and thousands of years. And they are pretty much aware of that.
Right.
But for some reason, some of us, the computer's acting up and we begin to become enlightening.
Right.
And so now we are a danger. And when they see those individuals that have become enlightened and they begin to rise up, well, there's a possibility it may wake somebody else up.
Yes.
And so men like King understand they had to make examples of him.
Yes.
You know what God plans and man plans.
Yes.
And it worked right into God's plan that they chose Martin.
Yes.
Martin was born to be Martin.
Right.
There can't be another Martin.
Right.
God don't make the same two snowflakes.
Right.
Martin had a job to do.
Yeah.
But if you notice, with the Martin family, look at how they made an example.
Yeah.
How they killed his mother, how they killed his brother. You know, people, we don't realize how that family, the King family, the whole family was terrorized by the United States government.
Yeah.
By the United States government.
Yeah.
James Earl Ray gave a deathbed confession to the King family. Yeah. He was not the murderer of Martin Luther King. He was a patsy. Yeah. It was the government. Yeah. You know, like I said, many of us really don't want true freedom. Right. We are afraid of that.
Yes.
When they really want to be, they are afraid, Queen. Yes. This is why when leadership comes up, we fight leadership.
Right.
White folks ain't the biggest problem with leadership. It's us. Right. We fight at our own. Right. That's why the scripture say when Jesus was crucified, say, were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Yeah.
We were always there because we were a part of it.
Yes, sir.
And it's the same thing. It continues to go over and over and over.
Yes.
And it's, this is why God himself has to intervene in our affairs.
Sure.
Because if he does not intervene in our affairs, we will continue to cycle or whatever, being a slave.
Sure. Well, stay there for a minute. King, stay there for a minute because you made some, you gave me a moment and I need to speak on it. And here we go. And I don't want you all to get on me this morning, but you can. I'm a big girl. I can take it. You make an amazing point about God intervening, but I don't believe that we have a mindset to understand the breadth and the extensiveness of God. I believe that those of us who still acknowledge God, we keep God in the box of the church, and that's where we go on Sundays, and we pray and we worship and we talk about our trials past, and we still believe that we are going to have these freedoms when we die. That all of this will be over when we die. We don't discuss and have a mindset that says outside of this, in this universe of ours, that we can have a freedom. So I put it out there, and I want you all to really, and work with me now. You all might say, Colette, how dare you say that? But I believe that even in our mindset of understanding God, we are still stuck in a box. Because we still don't believe that we can have all of those things and be free right now. We don't have an understanding that we have a free mindset. You made an amazing point about us being proud. We're such a proud people. I want to know, what is it that we're proud about? What are we proud about? Tell me. What is it that keeps us so prideful that we are so oppressive and suppressive to people that look like us? We're not proud to everybody else. You all, when we were talking about the movie, and Lee Daniels had a clip, and I gave a quote for him, and what did he say? We live in two different worlds. We act one way around black people, and then we act another way around white people. And that's our truth. And so I just want to understand that in the midst of where we're going in this search for freedom, as we are again commemorating the assassination in 50 years since King's killing, and then the death of Winnie Mandela, where are we still? And when we're leaning on God, but we put God in a box. King, hey.
Queen, this is why I study white people.
Okay.
You have to study them.
Wait, King, hold on. Wait, stop me. You study white people?
My reality, when I see God,
Okay.
I study the white man because he acts like God acts. He don't make no excuses. He wants to go to Mars. He builds a contraption.
Right.
He gets his math together.
Sure.
He puts it together and he tries it. He may fail.
Sure.
But he continues to try.
Sure.
If you got a bad heart, Queen,
Yeah.
he has opened us up enough times, understand, to say, well, I can build a mechanical heart.
Sure.
He's the God of his world.
Yeah.
He rules the planet, and he continues to act as a God. And until we get the mindset that you see that's in white people, understand, but we can't go in their wicked ways because they did it in a wicked or mean-spirited way or whatever.
Okay.
But he acts as a God. Because subliminally, we even do this, Queen.
Okay.
We say, it's the white man, will the white man let us?
Yeah, we do.
This is how we talk.
That's what we say.
Will the white man let you? Think the white man gonna let you do that?
Right.
This is how we talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
We in our mind, subliminally, we see the Caucasian race as a race of gods.
Sure.
And they act like it. They don't make no excuses.
No.
They make the laws and everything. They set up everything.
Yes.
They set up the educational system.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
regardless, ain't nothing spooky about it, Queen.
No.
And
No, it's
until
not.
we get out of that spooky, childish, this is why they call us children.
Yeah.
You know, this is why in the scripture said the children of Israel.
Okay.
The children.
Sure.
Because we are seen as children.
Yeah.
And the word Israel, when you research the word Israel, it represents the total white race.
Okay. So
Queen,
King,
have a blessed weekend.
you too as well. Thank you so much. I love you too. I mean, what did he say? And I think that's what it boils down to. The truth is, it's who you believe yourself to be. And we talk about that every day. We talk about affirmations. I am. When you wake up in the morning, my mother asks in Great Amazing Morning Parents, my mother asks every day, how are you? I'm amazing. I am amazing. That is what I speak. I am amazing. I am grateful. I am blessed. I am encouraged. I am loved. I am caring. I am compassionate. You want to keep going? Because that, if you can't speak it into you, you won't believe it. Because what you'll do is that you'll turn on the dumb box. You'll turn on the media. You'll turn on the radio. And then you'll listen to all the things that they tell you. So then you'll hear some song and it says, oh, you're a thought. So then you start acting like a thought. You're a gangster. You start acting like a gangster. I mean, it's subliminal. If you all don't get that, it creates a mindset. And it determines what you think you can do and what you can't do. That's what this is. And so if we are sitting consistently trying to determine what it looks like, you won't follow the right models because you're not even clear about what is going on around you, everyone. You all get that? All the lines are lit. This is, okay, let me go to, thanks for your patience. Great morning to you.
Hey, Colette, how you doing?
Good morning, 6'4". I'm amazing. How are you?
I just want to say,
Sure.
very interesting. It's very interesting because after hearing everything that's been going on, it still boils down to the eyes of the beholder.
Okay.
And how do you see yourself and where do you see yourself at?
Okay.
When it comes to, like when you talk about Martin Luther King,
Yes.
and then you talk about Mandela,
Yes.
you know, throughout history, there's only been a handful of leaders who've actually done what they said they was going to do and asked for what we really needed.
Stay there, 6'4", stay there 1 second.
Islam or the Moorish Science Temple about Dr. Martin Luther King,
Okay.
you might not like that person.
Okay. Stay
Because
there, 6.
They don't have a love affair with Dr. Martin Luther King like a lot of black folks do.
Sure. 6, stay there 1 second because you make a point, and I think that we've discussed that as you have been on this show on Friday, that are we talking about black leaders or leading blacks? There's a difference. Let me bring that back to your remembrance. Black leaders or leading blacks. And then why do we always act like it has to be this one person or these two people that create and speak for all of us? And then why do we act like that person can't grow and change in their ideology? Why do we act like there couldn't be a Malcolm and a Martin that function simultaneously? for black. Why do we always yet again have to put ourselves in this box of what we can and cannot do? This is what I'm going to do. I'm up against a break. 6, I want you to hold on. Callers, I see all of you.
Okay.
We're going to add another component to this, okay? In the clip, you saw that Tavis discussed depression in Dr. King. We talked about what it looks like that he was isolated and he was abandoned the year before he was assassinated. And there's a component of mental health in there. So I have some experts, women in the building. We're going to talk about mental health as we're going to add that layer on top of this conversation. Because again, if you don't believe that you are free, there could be something psychologically going on with you, or the dynamic of living in a PTSD society of people of color. We're going to delve into all of that. So I don't want anyone to go anywhere. Let me engage the break and we'll be right back.